Hello, everyone. I'm Paul with Pauldances.tv. We're doing a Paulcast. Yes, that's my cheesy name for my podcast. And you can find the channel on twitch.tv/pauldances. And if you are a dancer and you also have Amazon Prime, you have the opportunity to subscribe to the channel for free. So it's literally just taking Jeff money out of Jeff Bezos' pocket and putting it in mine. You basically link your Amazon Prime account to Twitch because they own Twitch, and that's one of your benefits for Amazon Prime is you can subscribe for free, and that pays me $2.50 per subscriber per month. So you don't even have to buy anything or go to the Patreon or those are options too, but you can support for free. With that, we've got our representative owner founder.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many people are on the team, but this is Jenna Applegarth with Applejacks Shoes, and we're just gonna nerd out about shoes today.
It's like a dream
Dance
come
shoes.
true.
Yeah. So why don't you give yourself an introduction of a little bit of dance background too,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
go from there.
Cool. So, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us. As Paul said, my name is Jenna, and I am a traveling dance instructor, specifically swing dances, mostly Lindy Hop, St. Louis Shag, Balboa, and blues. But I do dabble in some other things here and there when people hire me to do so, or when I get the inspiration to make it out to like a West Coast swing event or get sucked into something cool like that. So I've been doing that for, gosh, I think teaching full time probably about 8 years now, 6 or 8 years. But I've been
Wow.
dancing around, yeah. So I know I constantly am like, yeah, John and I have been like 2, 3 years. Wait, no, that's totally wrong. That's like very wrong. So I think it's like almost 6 years now. Um, and yeah, I was teaching a little bit before that when I was doing some other work. I was brand ambassador and I was a new restaurant opener trainer for Red Robin for a long time.
Hmm.
Lots of various things, gymnastics and cheerleading coach. So a lot of things that involve some sort of teaching or body mechanics. So got me into the dance stuff, and then the dance stuff and shoes got me into dance shoes. So actually my mom when I was little, she used to jokingly, well, she had a lot of nicknames for me. We won't go into all, but one of them was Imelda because she thought that I had a serious obsession and an obscene number of shoes. And so she would always reference oh gosh, was it, where was that woman from? I don't remember now. She was like an empress or a czar, I think it was. But she was like famous for her hundreds of thousands of pairs of shoes. And so my mom called me that for, I'm probably, of course, like misrepresenting her title and where she was from. So historical
We've got our fact checker
knowledge
on
here. Yes.
on duty.
Can
Trombonist, can you no,
you get on that? Because I've already butchered something, I'm sure. What a start. What a start.
So, I mean, you were collecting shoes before dancing then.
Yeah, yeah. And it was never like intentional. I just really liked shoes. I just found them really fun, like just the idea of, I don't know, any 12-year-old kid being like, ooh, pink and blue and those yellow and all of them. There's definitely some of that. But I think there was also, I mean, I don't remember exactly when, but I do remember at some point starting to be interested in how they were made and like which shoes I liked better, which ones felt better and why. Or starting to get interested in things in the fashion industry in regards to shoes, which oftentimes there's this concept in the fashion industry of doing something because it's art and like you can, not necessarily because it's functional or because you need to. And some of that stuff is really, really fascinating. It's so cool to see what people come up with. And then sometimes you're like, God, were they on acid when they made this? Like, what is this? And I think just that, like noticing that at a fairly young age, I think. So,
Cool. One of the viewers says, I only now just noticed the shelves.
yeah, the
So-
shoes, the shoes,
and
they're already there.
this isn't your personal collection. These are all Applejacks, yeah?
No, no, these are much more organized than my collection. No, we're working on organization. I got this great idea of using some like if you when you go to IKEA and they have that section where it's all the rebate section and they just have random pieces of the ends of shelves or the ends of bookcases and drawers, etc.
Hmm.
Um, so I grabbed a few of those, and what we're gonna do is just like put them on the wall like this, and that way we can hang my heels over the edge of them. So it's like a hanging display using some
Oh, cool.
recycled items. Yeah. So that'll help with that. And then that should make some room for the flats to go on the shelves that they're supposed to be on instead of the floor where they typically. But these I actually organize fairly well. Since these have to be maintained and shipped out to people or put into boxes for events and stuff, they have to be a bit more organized. The other ones just get thrown in and out of my suitcase. And
Have you seen some like relative success with the events? Because I know I've seen you at Camp Hollywood and Lindy on the Rocks.
yeah.
How many events have you done so far?
So I actually kind of dove right in. I went really big to start off with. Even if I didn't think I would really at the events, once I launched and had product on hand, I wanted to get something out at as many events as I could.
Hmm.
So I've actually this summer, Ballast was my first one, and so Katie Pangburn let me set up there without having like ever seen the shoes or heard anything about it, and I really appreciated that. And we did great. And then at that event, Desiree Roffers was like, "How do I get these shoes to my event in Chicago?" Which was like the next weekend. So I was like, "Okay, we can make this happen." So I got them up for Great Lakes Bal, and then we had them also at Camp Hollywood. We had them at Lindy on the Rocks, and then at Classic City Swing in Athens, Georgia. And then I also had them at some European events. So I've had them at Bow Love, and I had them at Vienna Honey Swing, and I think that's it. I feel like I'm missing one, and I'm going to feel really bad if I am. Remember later, but around 7 or 8 events since I got product in July.
Wow,
So yeah, it's a
that's
lot.
awesome.
But it's been really good because it's really put my brand out there. It's put the shoes out there, and it's given me a lot of information and feedback really quickly, which I
Okay.
think is also really great. So I won't be at as many regularly that way. Um, like I'm planning hopefully to be at ILHC. I'm finalizing that right now. And then for sure, Lindy Focus and hopefully Calbow.
Okay.
And then the next thing will probably be Lindy Fest in Houston for the US. And then we have a couple of events over here in Europe. We'll be at Blues Fever here in Vienna, maybe at Lindy Shock. It just kind of finalizing. The hardest part is making sure that I have someone to be at the table and actually be
Hmm.
there with the product and set it up, because typically I can't always be the person to do that. And that also means that, depending on the event, there might be vendor fees, or there might be, I might have to cover the person's pass or their travel or
Hmm.
extra compensation, things like that, because I want them to be taken care of for their time as well. Obviously, nobody wants to go to a dance event and work the entire time and then be like, wait, why was I here again?
Yeah, that's
So,
funny. I thought dancing was expensive, and then I got
mhm.
married and had to start paying for two passes. I was like, oh
Right?
my gosh, it's like you could walk out
Hmm.
spending like 2 grand on an event. Easy.
Yeah.
Like it's
And it's easy to do that. It's really easy. And obviously a lot of events have options like volunteering or staff roles. But you have to also remember that when you do those, as great of an opportunity as they are to reduce costs, it also typically means that you're missing out on something of the event.
Yeah.
Which, depending on where you're at in your life, might be worth it, might not be.
Yep.
So
yeah,
it's so like the events, being at events has gone well, and
that's
it's
great.
It's really exciting. Like,
Well,
I'm still a little bit amazed.
I have to tell you, so Hunter she wants some actual shoes, even though my wife, I don't know if, I can't remember if you've ever met my wife, like officially or not.
It is very, very possible.
But
I feel like the number of people I've met, I'm so much better once I'm in a conversation and we can remember what the conversation
well, she's also very introverted, so there might be but she's she like loves the person that you are, at least in the public space. And so for her birthday, her mom was messaging me like, well, what should I get her? And I was like, why don't you get her? So her mom actually got her a gift card for your shoes, but she hasn't purchased any yet. But so this will also be like kind of shopping around for that.
Yes, figure that out. Perfect.
Let's see. Chat says, it seems like a lot of dancers are branching out into shoes of late. Wonder what kicked off that trend. Well, we'll talk about that a little bit, Johansson. We got our Swedish viewer here.
Yeah.
I like sharing where everybody's from, so.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah, why don't
similar time zone.
yeah, exactly. Why don't we rewind a little bit and talk about what the heck got you? I mean, obviously shoe fan, but
yes.
I know a lot of shoe fans. Not all of them start their own companies.
Yeah, so I think it's definitely a combination of one, obviously, like being interested in shoes, and then as that carried on, I got more and more interested in how are they made, how are they constructed, what makes a good shoe versus not a good shoe, things like that. Part of the reason I got more interested in that was because of my teaching. So, traveling and teaching 3 weekends a month or so, you go through a lot of shoes. And, sometimes I'll go to a weekend and the joke is, how many pairs of shoes did you bring with? And if the number is ever below 5, I think everyone's amazed. And so, because I'm like, oh, well, I have my sandals and I have my tennis shoes and then I have my 3 pairs of dancing shoes. And I think with that, I really, really struggled to find shoes that really worked for me the way that I wanted them to. And I've found shoes over the years that were not dance shoe companies. They were just, some random brand that I found that I really, really liked 95% of it, right? Like maybe they had a really comfortable upper part of the shoe and it was super balanced, but then the sole was just so sticky. I'm like, okay, so maybe I take them anyways and I use them on only slick floor, or I take them to a cobbler and get suede put on the bottom. And then later I find another pair that I'm like, oh, these are great. They're leather sole. They're great on sticky floors, but these are the most uncomfortable and heavy shoes I've ever put on in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I kind of kept running into these things, and then I kept running into things not fitting me. So there's right now, actually, there's quite a few in the last few years, like that person just mentioned, with especially people who are dancers starting some dance shoe companies. And there's some really great companies out there with some beautiful, beautiful designs. And some of them just really don't fit my feet. And it's so unfortunate, because I look at the shoe and I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful, I want it. And the number of times that I've bought shoes that don't actually fit my foot is far too many to talk about.
It's like, oh, we'll make it work. And then
yeah. And I did that for years, as I bought that didn't really fit. So I think typically also people who wear women's fit shoes are more likely to, if anyone's listening in and don't know what those are, it's where basically the toe bones are pushed inward, either on the outside or the inside, and it kind of causes like a bowing at the joint, and you kind of get this where like the bone pushes out, and that
What is
little
this
like
called?
it's called a bunion.
Oh, bunions.
Um,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, bunions. And so people who wear women's style shoes typically get these more because women's shoes tend to be more narrow, and they
Hmm.
also tend to be a little bit pointier in the toe box. So what often would happen is I would get these shoes and I'd love them and I'd put them on and they would almost work, but they would just cramp my toes in, and my bunions now are really horrible, and I definitely did it to myself. Years of wearing shoes that don't actually fit, and pointy shoes. So if you're listening now, don't do that anymore. Take care of your feet. Take care of them. Um, so I was like, I keep buying these shoes. They don't really work. Then they sit in my closet, and then I wear them, but then my feet hurt. Or I buy these other shoes that they don't really work. These other shoes, they don't really work. And I just saw these other companies that kept popping up, and I would get really, really excited. And I'd be like, oh, maybe these will work for me. Maybe these will work. And just still not quite finding what I needed.
Hmm.
And as this continued to happen, I kept studying shoes more and more. So I was like, okay, why don't these shoes fit me? What's contributing to my feet being in pain? Why do my arches hurt? Why do my toes hurt? Why do I feel off balance when I wear heels, even if they're really low heels? And then I started going, okay, well, what
That's because you're
makes,
drunk, Jenna. That's.
well, that also applies not heels. Right. But I did. I was like, oh, is it just me? And for a long time, I was like, oh my God, maybe I just suck at wearing heels.
Hmm.
Maybe I just suck at turning. You get into a little bit of the like, oh, maybe it's just me, which it probably was also that. But I think the shoes also weren't helping. And that's what I started to learn was the more about the heel placement. And kind of when you're wearing heels, even if it's, this tall and you think of it as not a heel, but most boots or Oxfords technically have a heel.
Hmm.
And even something like that, the way it's balanced and the way your foot rests in that shoe will affect how comfortable you are. It will affect where your weight is placed throughout your foot. It will affect your balance.
Hmm.
And that's when I started to be like, oh, this is really important stuff. So then I would start to ask people about their shoes, like, oh, do you know about this? Do you know about that? And when people didn't have those answers for me, that started to make me go, oh, these aren't things that people are thinking about.
Right.
So a lot of times we're looking at shoes and we're like, oh, they have a squishy insole. They'll be great. But we don't necessarily know that squishy insole is going to stay flat.
Hmm.
And so we're missing that information. And I was missing that. So I started just going further and further into understanding shoes, how they were, what, if you were to go to a foot doctor and they were to recommend shoes for you, what is it that they recommend? What do physiotherapists say that you need for your shoes? When you look at other dance styles, flamenco, tango, West Coast swing, what are they doing? What are they looking for? And basically, I took all this and I had all this information, and I still wasn't getting what I wanted. And one day I should just start my own shoe line. And I kind of like had this, like joking seed. And then it continued and continued. And so then I reached out to some other companies and said, hey, I really want to do something like my own line. And I believe in you. I believe in your product. I'd love to take this route. And unfortunately for me at the time, everybody else was very busy with their own projects or didn't feel like it was something they wanted to do, which I totally understand and respect. And what it did was it made me just have to do it on my own. So that meant basically jumping into this industry. And I started doing research online. I found different like schools that you can go to for a week and you can learn how to make the shoes. And often they have guidelines online. They have information about how to draw. So I started teaching myself how to draw shoes. So even
Oh,
now, the
that's
only thing
cool.
I can draw is shoes. I cannot draw anything else, but I can draw shoes.
Nice.
So like I had to do that. Like I had to learn, and
Did you go to
Cheaper.
the week school or whatever?
I haven't. I haven't actually. What I
Oh,
did
okay.
do is instead I started talking to and going to like bespoke shoemakers
Oh,
that were
okay.
either local in Vienna or in other cities that I would go to. And I still really want to do one of the week-long ones where you actually go and you make your own pair. But I started finding that the information I really needed was accessible in different ways.
Hmm.
And if I go to the week-long one, it's that information plus actually doing it myself, which would still be really fun and I want to do, but I don't have to necessarily do. So, well, there's one in New York, in Brooklyn, that I really like, and then there's one in London that's a all women company, and I really really love following them. And they just released a like how to make your own shoes book, and it's super cool. So they
Hmm.
were an amazing resource. There's another one in Australia. Like, so I just started gathering like all this information. I mean, the number of shoemakers that I follow on Instagram might be higher than Lindy Hoppers that I follow.
It's
And
funny just on that, like it's funny how many, like it always blows me away like what people are into, right? Like there's like
yeah,
all these conferences for like making shoes. Like I don't know, that's just
there
amazing
is
to me. Like that's
so crazy. And obviously people probably think Lindy Hop is the same as shoemakers. Like they get together and they trade. And I started understanding like the difference of different types of construction and whether things are made like different ways of making things by hand, because you can make by hand but in different ways, and there's all these levels. And it was a lot of internet research and a lot of talking to people. And then I bought flights and I flew to Alicante, Spain, and I rented a car and I drove around and knocked on doors.
really,
Like
this
I
is how you
did.
found your manufacturer?
I really did this. I
This is
really did.
awesome. Do you speak Spanish?
And no, I do not. I do not.
They
Um,
open the door. Hi.
yeah, it was, and I had some places that they didn't answer at all, and then other places where it wasn't quite what I was looking for. Maybe they were a huge factory and my production numbers were just too small.
Hmm.
And then along the way, like as I was doing all this, I gained more and more contacts. Like the more people you meet, the more information you get,
Hmm.
and then you just kind of start to spread out.
Now,
And
what was it specifically about Spain? Is that like known as like this is where you got to get your
yeah,
shoes done?
so Spain, that region, the Alicante region, specifically like Elche and they're really known for women's shoes. They were for a long time the highest producer like of women's shoes. And now with a lot of manufacturing moving to different places in Asia, those numbers have changed. But they're really known for quality shoes. Also, Portugal has a region also very well known for shoes.
Interesting.
The
That's
the brand Swivels, Amelie in Paris, she produces in Portugal
okay.
and has a really great factory there. So there's like little regions. Poland also used to be really well known for shoes, and that number is kind of dwindling down. But Hepcats, they produce there in Poland. I think it's in Krakow, I want to say, is where her place is. Um, and then, there's little pockets. They say there's some pockets in Hungary. They say that there's some in Turkey still. And so part of Spain for me was like, I really knew that industry produces very well. And also I have a lot of friends there. And I had lived in Madrid for 6 months doing a teaching residency at one of their swing dance schools there.
Okay.
And so I at least knew a little bit about the region and I knew about their industry. And it felt like the one that I had the easiest time approaching, which is weird because I'm technically closer to, but I just felt like I had less information.
Okay.
And so I did that. And I also had Ronnie from St. Savoy. She gave me some really great advice, answered so many questions of mine, like really, really great. And yeah, like I went on this journey and eventually found the factory that I've been using. And I also then found this gal here in Vienna who speaks German, which is great for Vienna, and then speaks English, which is great for me, and is from Alicante, Spain. So she speaks Spanish,
Oh,
and her
that's
whole
awesome.
family is in the shoe industry there, which is just like it's perfect and it's amazing. And so she's been also absolutely great. Thank you, Blanca, for appearing into my life and saving me. But yeah, so basically, like I just did this and I finally found a lady and was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And so I sent over my drawings, and then the next thing I know, I had samples. And it's just like, okay, I
That's
just
got to
have to
be
pay
super.
money and order them.
That's got to be super surreal. Like, wait, this is actually a thing now. Like, it's.
Yeah. And obviously, like there's all sorts of little stuff, when you order a sample, it's like you order a sample, get it, and then you change a bunch of things, and they send you a new one, and then they send you a new one, etc. So there's all of that, and there's all the questions, and there's all the help from Ronnie and my husband Toby. Like there's just a ton, and it just still feels a little bit like I went to bed and then I woke up and it happened.
And there's shoes.
And there's shoes,
It's like the
but
Tooth Fairy, but with shoes.
yeah,
Like.
but a whole bunch of hard work that went into it that I just somehow forget of all of the late nights and tears and frustrations
No,
that still occur. But
that's awesome though. That's yeah. I was curious. It's like, what do you? How does somebody start this journey? And you literally like walked out the door and you're like knocking on doors. And so, what made you select the specific one that you happened
so
upon?
this one that I went with, because I tested out a few options, and the one that I went with, and actually I'm next week I'm actually tomorrow morning, I'm heading back to Alicante because there's a big conference
Oh,
of
okay.
a bunch of different representatives of different like heel factories and leather factories and insole factories, and also going to some other factories to look at changing some production stuff as well. So
Oh, okay.
I might have two factories or I might switch it over. Um, but there's some things that I would like to do better, and so that I'm exploring some other options as well. Um, but
Is
basically, I
this?
went with the one oh yeah, go
Oh
ahead.
no, go ahead.
No.
Finish that, and then we'll.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say, so I went with this one partially because it was someone that would work with me with small orders.
Hmm.
So for example, like one of the factories I looked at, like I did actually look at also a really great factory in China, and I had some hesitations on China because of work conditions and um, just like the carbon footprint of shipping and things like that.
Hmm.
And I mostly decided not to do it because the minimum order was 500 pairs per style. And as someone starting out,
Now,
that's
does that
that's a
include
big number.
size? Like it.
It does. So like you can spread that out,
Oh,
but
okay.
like right now I typically order about 150 per style.
Okay.
So that's a big jump. And down the road, I would love to be ordering in that number.
Hmm.
I would love that because it also lowers the price point for me, which will be great. Because if I do that, it means I can also either lower the price point for my customers, or I can start to adjust my profit margins and see what other things are possible.
Yeah.
But this factory, they were willing to do small order numbers, and they were willing to try some things that are less common in the industry, which was a lot harder to get some other factories to do.
Hmm.
Um, they also, in the beginning, were really, really fast. And what I have learned throughout this process is factories are fast when they don't have other work. When they have other work, they're very slow. So, so you just never have a good knowledge of how long something's going to take.
So it's
So
super
it's
variable.
like, yes, and
Okay.
it's like you might have something where you get a sample in 2 weeks or you get a sample in 2 months, and you just never know. And there's this joke with people who are in the shoe industry not just working in Spain, but working anywhere. They're like, oh yeah, they tell you you'll get it on Monday. They just don't tell you which Monday.
Okay.
And you just kind of have to like understand. And then especially being a smaller company, the smaller orders, if a factory has one company who's ordering 5,000 of something and you're ordering 100 or 200,
It's like they'll get to it.
yeah, they'll get to it when they get to it.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult at times. It's definitely like
So it's like
drives you
super
crazy.
super important to have your own like stock
Yeah.
like up and
Yeah.
yeah.
And I've already sold out of some things, even though I thought, like, great, I have a ton of stock, but just they sold much faster than I thought they would. So
That's
now,
awesome.
like, it's really great. And I'm like, okay, is it just this color or is it, I have to learn still, obviously, being a new business, like what that means for the long term. But
Let's
it's
catch up
good. It's
with
good.
chat really quick.
Yeah.
Trombonist said, oh, when we were talking about sizing, like your issues with looking through shoes, she said, I also have a problem with having wide feet, so I'm hesitant to buy expensive shoes.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, when you think about, it kind of goes back to what we were saying about the cost of events, right? Sometimes you're at a place in your life where you look at a pair of shoes, $150 or $200. That's a lot. You know what? I just can't do it. It doesn't matter how good they are. I can't afford it. And then other times you're at a place in life where you're like, why would I spend money on those shoes when I'll have to get new ones in 2 months? And I'll get these instead. And I think people, especially those who have problems with how shoes fit. So if you have larger foot sizes or you have wide feet or you have, you know, things like bunions or you've been, I have a friend who was in a car accident. So she's had surgery on her foot. So she has basically like 2 different size feet. It's really hard to look at something with that price point and say, I'm going to spend money on this. I'm going to have it shipped to me and then not know if that fits me. Like that can be really, really hard, even if you have the money to do it because of the frustration.
Yep.
Right? It's like you go into a fitting room and you try on 5 pairs of fit, doesn't matter what they cost. You're still irritated and frustrated, and like unhappy. And I think that's the same thing is like, it's hard to put that money out there when you don't know.
Well, then we also do like I feel like a lot of dancers do well, I just bought like $40 or $50 shoes, and then I spent $40 on getting them suede, and then I put $60 insoles in them.
Yeah.
And like, wait a sec, why didn't I just buy nice shoes?
Yeah, and that happens a lot. And sometimes it's like Keds. I think there's Keds, and then there was like Payless had the Payless brand for a while. And the Payless version was wider. So even if you looked at Keds and you're like, oh, maybe they're better construction, you're like, well, they're narrow. These aren't. I'm going to get these ones. And you just know that in 2 months, you're going to have to buy new ones. And I think that's one of the things I'm trying to work on with my shoes specifically is having a little bit more variety with the fit. And even that has been a really, really interesting journey because like my very first model that came out, getting feedback on how they fit. For example, I typically am someone who I have a very wide toe box because of bunions. So most of the other dance shoes that are out there, they're too tight in the toe box. And so the Senecas, my first ones, they fit me. They were like the first pair of shoes that I felt like my toes were not scrunched up while in heels, but they weren't too long. I was super excited. And then my friend Lindsay, she was one of the people that was selling at Camp Hollywood, and she does most of the US event stuff for me. She's amazing. And
actually, Jenna, why don't you grab one of your shoes and talk about it?
Totally do that. I'm going to take off my headphones so that I don't pull my lap.
Kids are nice because they actually have wide sizes for all their selections. Yeah, that's true. Although I don't know my sizing now with Keds because they stopped doing the men's sizing. Oh my gosh, I said grab a shoe and she has all these.
Just grab a whole bunch of stuff. It's fine.
That's perfect. It's funny that room is actually a lot deeper than the camera would makes it look. Like that is way farther away than I thought.
All right.
Yeah, Johansson. So in the US we have men's sizing and women's sizing, and I don't really know the like how to convert it, but I didn't realize that you don't. Does Europe in general not really have two different sizings?
They do and they don't. They use the same numbering system. So like for example, I typically in the US a women's 7.5 or 8, and that means in Europe I would wear 38. But if I were to buy a brand that was like a men's style brand, a 38 would probably be too big. Typically, we would size down about to a 36 or a 37.
Interesting.
So they use the same numbering system, but um, they're not the same size. And that's actually more frustrating to me. And this is something that I've learned with the factories is that even if you're making something that's a unisex size, it doesn't exist. They start off with either a men's last or a women's last, and then from there they change it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
so typically what you find is that there's recently, like this last year, there's been a lot of Kickstarter, Indiegogo type campaigns for some really cool shoes, typically all founded and produced in Europe. It's like Paper Cuts is one, Flamingos is one. What was one of the other ones? Watto is another one. And you really just have to read the size chart because they're all unisex sizes.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't really mean anything. So like, it's really hard. And like sizing charts are really just what
So it's like you definitely want
so
to
hard.
try shoes on. Like
Yeah. And that's like I've been with my shoes, I was really trying for like if you go to the website, you'll notice that we don't have things labeled as men's shoes. And I did that because the number of people I encounter that are either non-binary or agender, or even people who identify as men, maybe they want to wear heels, and it can feel really weird to go onto a website and feel like you have to shop women's shoes to buy heels.
mm-hmm.
So I made the decision of like, it doesn't need to be separated that way. I can make this a little bit easier for these people and not complicated for anybody else. So great, eliminate that. So I try to divide everything by height.
By
but then
heel
I still have
height?
to have
Is that
yeah.
okay.
So like I'll have flats, and then we'll have like low heels, mid heels, high heels.
Okay.
So basically you can search that way. And then I have 2 different sizing charts because again, the way that shoes are made, you basically still have to start with something and then change it. So every model that I do has its own individual like measurements, but they still start from one size chart. So what I actually did, of course, being a dancer and swing music, is I have A and B. And on the website, it says just like most 32 bar swing choruses, we have more A's than B's. So,
okay.
and so right now we have, I have like most things that come from the A. And so they are typically, if you, they will be more related to what we think of as most commonly women's sizes. And then the B sizing chart is what commonly as the men's sizes.
Okay.
And so I have that there, and then like just trying to do a little bit to get us a little bit out of this mindset. And part of that is because when you have women's shoes and you go to the factory, like so often they're so tiny and they're pointed and narrow. And the whole goal for me was to try to go away from that, because if everybody else, if all these other dance companies are already doing that, if they're already making shoes that fit a certain way, I don't want to do that because they have that market. Great. They're satisfying people. They're taking care of people that need that. And so my goal is to try to take care of other people and fit a little bit differently. So I was mentioning before with like first model, which is Seneca, and I'll show this is one of the Seneca models. This is the rose gold and silver worn model by me when I tested it many times. So for me, like I found that this toe box was actually much wider and it was really, really great. Like I mentioned, it actually fit me. And my friend Lindsay, she did the same. She was like, oh, finally. But then I also have people who are like, oh, they're too narrow. And the first time I heard that, I was like, what? This is crazy. Oh my gosh. And so as I've like learning and studying, so every time I'm around, I like look at their foot in the shoe and I'm like, okay, where does your foot go? How does it sit? So what I learned just right away with this model was that if toe is wide here, like these 2 points, it's really great. But if your foot is wide here, then it wasn't great.
Oh,
like
because
then
it kind
it felt
of pinches
narrow.
in on the
because it curves in. So it was like, oh, this part being wide, great. This part not so good. So that was like, oh, super useful. So then the next model I had, which is the Newport, and this is the snakeskin one of that. This one, for example, you can see it's like a totally different entry point for the foot. So now if your foot is wide here, you don't have that same issue because it's not curving in. So it's like just finding out all these things and trying to apply them to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's hard because even with these two shoes, they fit differently, because one is open and one isn't. They fit your foot differently. So these actually feel a little bit more snug. And part of that is because the sides here have like a liner on the inside to help with the shape. It holds the shape more, whereas because there's no sides at all, your foot moves around a little bit differently, so it doesn't feel as snug. So like even though I learned a lot before starting, I feel like every day I'm just learning something new. Besides all the Spanish words that I have to learn in regards to shoes. So, tacon. Not here. Yeah. So
what's it called?
Yeah, it's
Spanish.
Tacon.
Tacon.
TACON. Yeah. It's good. So it's it's been really, really cool, like figuring out with the sizing to do something a little bit different and then still adjusting as I go. So even the next models I have coming out are still going to fit a little bit differently from these.
Okay. So you're going back to going back and adjusting through each iteration.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and I don't know that these ones will change in the future. Like the next run of these might still fit the same, but my other models will fit differently than, because again, like I don't necessarily want everything to fit the same.
And do you have the two models right now? How many models do you have?
So I have two. So I have these two, the Seneca.
Okay.
One in 2 colors. And then I have this one in 3 colors.
Okay.
And, well, 2.5 because most of the rose gold silver are sold out. So
gotcha. Okay.
Those went really, really fast. Everybody loved that color. I think this one is the weirdest of the color. It's the most adventurous. Yeah. So I think this one's going to take the longest for people to catch on. I think it's like, it's still a little bit, everybody's like, ooh, I don't know. Can I do snakeskin? Can I do that? Can I do that? But I found like, I start with like, oh, this is my favorite. And then I slowly like go and I'm like, actually, I really like this color. Actually, this one's my favorite. And so the snake right now has actually been one of my favorites because
they're like your children.
Yeah, and it's so hard. You can't actually see it in the video, especially with this lighting, but the snakeskin, it has like this peach undertone to it. So the way that it is not real snakeskin, to anyone who is curious, it is cow leather. And what they do is they print the snakeskin pattern onto the leather.
Onto the leather. Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So it's what it is it's like a peach colored leather with the snakeskin print on it. So it actually has this beautiful tone to it. And the reason I went with this color is I found that it looked beautiful on someone with like ivory skin or someone with like really dark ebony skin. Like it just, every skin color, it looked amazing.
Cool.
And I was like, oh, I'm so excited about this because, like especially with a lot of my colors, they're a little bit bolder, brighter than some folks are used to. And it makes us a little bit more nervous when we're trying colors. And it can also be hard to find things that match your skin tone. So having something that really was bright and adventurous, but still worked with basically every skin tone was really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
Also playing with leathers is like great.
Yeah, talking about leathers, I did want to, because
Mhm.
we mentioned wanting to talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the actual like what's going into the shoe and maybe
Hmm.
like sustainability practices or
Yeah.
just in general, because I know that's something that's always on your radar is like how can I be more responsible as far as like impact on the earth. You mentioned um, carbon footprint and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So
Oh,
just
real
to give
quick
like,
too. Hi,
oh yeah.
JP. JP says, I'm in Apple Valley, which is my hometown, but don't worry, I'm
Yay.
not at your house. Thank you, JP.
That's
Oh, and
awesome.
then to catch up really quick too, we
Yeah.
have Johansson said that
Hmm.
holds true for men's shoes as well. A 42 for one brand might not be the same as a 42 for another brand. Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely. It's the sizing is so frustrating.
Oh, and
there's
then
no there's no better way to say it.
Trombonist says, I liked seeing the purple ones on your website. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
into
yeah,
sustainability.
so I guess just to start off with a little bit of um like real look at the shoe industry itself.
Hmm.
So the biggest downer when I got into this was learning how wasteful overall the shoe industry is. Um, so some examples of that is just when you think about it, shipping, like cargo shipping. No matter where you produce from, you're gonna have to ship it from somewhere to somewhere, and then if someone orders online, you ship it from there to somewhere, and that's a lot of carbon emissions that's going on with all of that. So I was like, oh, okay, gotta think about that. Then you learn, well, if I'm making leather shoes, okay, well, there's a lot of waste that goes into the animal industry. So you have water waste and then just the leather itself. Factories typically, any scraps they have, they just throw away.
Hmm.
So then you end up with landfills just full of leather not being used that's usable. You have, for example, a lot of companies when they order shoes, if there's a defect, they just throw them away because they have the ability to not worry about it. So they just throw them away. So full pairs of shoes because there's a discoloration or it's slightly lopsided, thrown away. Sometimes the factories will take them and sell them in like their factory stores with permission from the companies, but a lot of times they just get thrown away. So like those were just some of the really big things that I was like, oh, this is really not great.
Hmm.
Um, and then even just like having to get samples of things, I get samples of things that I'm like, okay, now that I have this sample, what do I do with it? I just have it.
Hmm.
And that's really hard for me sometimes as I'm a part of that. So with the leather stuff, um, I've been really working on trying to make sure that the companies that I'm working with, both the factory, I mean, any of the factories that I work with, I'm checking on like their certifications, asking them to do certain things. And so the leather that I'm using for the uppers, which is going to be like this part of the shoe, the thing that we think of as mostly the designed part of the shoe.
Hmm.
And most of my shoes also right now have leather over the heel, but some future ones will not. Um, that I've been using pretty high quality leather, trying to make sure that it's a little bit softer, making sure that it's chrome free. Um, and actually, what I'm doing this week when I go to this conference is they have an entire section. They call it the green corner. And my goal is to actually find even better options for leather, just trying to find things that are a little bit, it's hard to say ethically sourced when it comes to an animal
Hmm.
product made from their skin. Like that's just a weird word for me to use personally. Um, it just is. But just trying to like think big picture of like things that are seeing
Maybe
less water or like,
responsibly sourced would be a
yeah,
better like.
responsibly sourced. That's a much better term. It's responsibly sourced. And I do really like the ones that I've used so far, but I still just think that there has to still be better options. Like there has to be someone out there that's doing something next level that I haven't thought of yet that exists. So
It's funny.
basically,
I know I've seen a
yeah.
few posts on Reddit where people
Hmm.
are like looking for like vegan shoes, for example.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's probably a market that you could eventually like dip
Yeah.
into,
And
which is interesting.
I do actually have in the Seneca, I have one color that is um the downside to vegan right now is that most of the time in the shoe industry, vegan just means plastic.
Oh, okay. So it's like,
So
well,
yeah, so it's like so I have red and Seneca is a vegan model.
oh, okay.
So the sole is made with a TPU, it's um thermopolyurethane. It's a plastic with rubber. And then it has a fabric, which is a combination. The red has, oh gosh, if I can remember this off the top of my head, it's a combination of polyester, which, if you don't know, folks, also is plastic. Sorry to break that to you. And then cotton and spandex. And then the liner is what we often call like uh, faux suede, which again, unfortunately, folks, all of your fake leather is plastic. So the hardest thing for me in like making shoes is that yes, I'm going this other option. It's not using an animal product, but it's still contributing to a high amount of waste.
Hmm.
But the great news is that there are a couple of companies that are just starting up recently that are providing leather alternatives that are not made from plastics.
Hmm.
And I'm really, really excited about them. They are a lot more expensive. So I don't know yet, like if they're going to be an option for me and my client base. But I have high hopes because I would love, love, love to provide better vegan options because I think right now, of all the dance shoe companies, I know Saint Savoy has a really beautiful vegan version of the Riviera.
Hmm.
And then, oh gosh, there's one other company, and I'm completely spacing. They have a really great vegan model. It's like a flat that my friend Elena helped design. And I would love to see better options. Like of all the dance shoe companies, there's three,
Hmm.
right? Like that's crazy to me. But the thing is that the reason people really like the leather is it breathes better, it
Hmm.
stretches better. It like you do like the way that leather shoes wear more
Well,
than
and
the
I
other
mean,
materials most of the time.
and if you take care of them, it's like you can have a pair of leather shoes that will last a
Yeah.
really long time. So there is
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. So I'm working on some options to have better vegan options that are not just all plastic. Because again, like I'm trying to be aware of this so
Hmm.
hard because I'm wanting to provide this product that I'm excited about, the dancers are excited about. And then at the same time, I'm just like, ugh.
I mean,
I know that I'm a part of the system, so
you're basically Nike to all of us, so well
yeah,
done.
I know. I mean, it's also hard because like I say all this and then I'm like, I'm a traveling teacher, so like every weekend I get in a plane. Like, how can I be? Yeah. So there's a little bit of like recognizing where I can make a difference and where I just have to also accept of like, this is the world that we live in and these are the products that we have and like, how can I make them better versus just contributing to the same cycles.
Yeah.
So it's with the leather though, what's been really cool is I've been asking the factory and I'm planning to continue to do this to send me the scraps.
Hmm.
So after they cut everything out and everything, they send me the scraps and I've been uh myself and then Blanca, the gal who helps me here in Vienna, we're making jewelry out of it.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, like
That's
which is really
Johansson
cool. Like
actually
trying to
asked
read.
about that.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
it's like
So
leather jewelry? Do you have
yeah.
something?
Ooh, I might have some pieces. Let me run
Sorry,
away from.
asking you to keep getting up.
No, it's okay.
Regarding polyester, it doesn't breathe too well. Yeah, yeah, definitely, Johansson. We have our soundboard while we're waiting. I mean, applause.
I don't have anything that's made right now, but like you can see, like these are cut out to get ready to make some cool double color earrings of sorts. And so
Oh,
basically,
okay,
like,
cool.
yeah, they send like I get scraps, something like this, and sometimes like there might be a little bit of glue on it, for example. So I'll clean that off and then just try to reuse it. So if they send me bigger pieces, then maybe I'll venture into making fanny packs or something. Who knows?
Amazing.
That I don't know, but like for right now, I'm just doing some small little earrings with the leather and
And
just trying to
earrings
use
that
it.
are matching your shoes?
Yes,
What?
yes. I know. It's great, right? I love it. I love it. This is 100% Blanca's idea, so she gets total credit for that. Um,
That's I mean,
because I
I
was
mean you
like,
could
what
even
do we
sell
do with
those
these scraps?
together. Like
Yeah.
that's cool. That's really
Yeah. So it's
cool.
kind of the goal is like get a whole bunch of those and then have them, so that they complement the shoes and everything. And then it just also then is instead of just throwing away the leather scraps, we're reusing them for something. And
That's cool. Wait,
same
so
you can
you have them sending all of the scraps though. So is
Yeah,
that
so
is
the
that a
factory
lot?
sends me, it's actually not. They're typically really, really good with how, like, they really, like, line up. I mean, they might have scraps that they don't send me. I'm sure, like, they probably have scraps that are like this or something that they don't send me.
Hmm.
Um, which I, I don't know what I would do with that if they sent it anyways, but anything that is, like, some of the pieces they've sent me were really big, and then they've sent me also small ones. So
Okay.
um, it's not a ton, but because they typically actually do a really good job of trying to use the leather. Um, and then if it's really big pieces, like say there's a full extra, I don't know, a full extra yard or something, then they would just save it and use it for the next round.
Right. Okay.
Um, so something like that they would keep and use again in the future. Um,
So
but
now
it's
do
yeah.
you select the materials? Like you select the
Hmm.
materials and how does that
Yeah.
work? Do you purchase it and send it to them or is that
Uh, so I contact different leather companies and I request samples. So actually I have a giant folder of leather samples. Actually, I think I
is it
have two
almost
folders
like
now.
when you're picking carpet? Same thing but with
Yes, it's
leather?
exactly the same thing, but with leather.
Interesting. Okay.
So sometimes like my husband will come home and there's just these cards all over the floor, just completely covered. And I'm like, I need a complementary color to peach orange. And he's like, oh God, what did I walk
Get
into?
out your color
Yeah.
wheel.
Yeah. I'm like, ah. So like, but it's like the same. They're little tiny squares. So I have that from a few different companies. And then I do the same, like I have actually have some here. So like these are some insole examples for like these are permanent insoles. So these would be This is actually the same one that's in this one here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like it's really hard to see in video, but basically it has like kind of like a cardboard bottom, and then it has there's actually a metal shank in here. Like there's a little tiny metal rod. I don't know if we can see the bottom.
Oh,
A little
interesting.
bit.
Okay.
And then it has the next layer of cardboard, which is the pink layer. And then this one happens to be like a gel foam top. And then sometimes you have just a normal foam top. But one of the things that I've been doing is for better insole options. So like this one having the gel foam is really, it's incredibly comfortable. It's great. It's really nice. So depending on the style of shoe, like some people do the metal rod, some people don't. It definitely makes the shoe like stiffer. So for example, West Coast swing shoes, oftentimes they don't even have this hard cardboard part because they do what they call either a shankless shoe, or it only has like a 1/4, which would have it end here. Then you have like a half, and then this one would be like a 3.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So there's like, again, like cool things that I'm learning, but then I have like these samples that I'm like, okay, what do I do? I use them for video interviews. So right now, like trying to figure out how to reuse these or recycle these is a little bit harder. But you know, it's eventually it might be that like I just give this to the factory, and that way then when they order the next set, they order one less or something. Because when they order them, they go to the company and they say, I need 150 of these. And so then they could say, you know, I need 100.
Oh, okay. So you basically you gather like almost like the product codes.
I gather like the samples or like, what things I want.
But they also, oh, sorry, you cut
They
out.
go get them. Oh, no, it's okay. So like once I say I want, like, here's the model of the shoe, this is the leather upper I want, this is the heel that I want, this is the insole that I want, this is the liner. If there's something that I don't know, then I'll ask them for recommendations.
Gotcha.
You know, I didn't know when we started this guy. This is one of our boots that will be coming out in 2020.
Oh shoot, we're getting previews now. Here we go.
So it's a little bit different than what it'll actually look like. The final product is going to be a much more rounded toe.
Okay.
This one ended up with kind of more an Italian dress shoe looking toe. But we did a removable insole on this one. Which the reasoning I wanted to do that is, one, I wanted to make sure that the insole we have in it is really good. So like this one is it's like super cushiony, thick. It also actually has a little bit of an arch support on it. But the number of people that have their own insoles is like astronomical. And so most of the time you have to size up. Yeah. And when you size up to like try to put them in, they still just don't fit right. So I was like, well, what if we just take them out? So this one was one that said, I want a removable insole with an arch support with like, you know, a gel type thing. And then the factory lady went out and she got a bunch of samples and sent me the samples. And I said, okay, this one. So sometimes they help me with it, and other times me saying this company with this company with that. So.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah. Like they picked the company that the eyelets on the boot, like they picked, I said I wanted silver and I wanted this kind and this kind. And then they went out and found it.
Okay, cool.
Which I'm really happy I didn't have to go find like the eyelet factory.
Now, are these the boots that you're showing now? Are these, to get away from using the men's?
No, it's fine. These will be on the B sizing scale. So those will be, so they will come in a of what is typically like more like the men's fit. Like the hardest part with the language thing is we do have a system already established. So it's like trying to transition out of it, but still reference, because people still have their entire lives based on what they're used to.
For example, that I like at Camp Hollywood, they did this year, they did curvy fit and straight fit,
Mm-hmm.
but the
Mm-hmm.
conversations were really difficult to have. I was like, because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, where's the straight one? And like the people that were helping weren't necessarily using that just as a replacement. They're like, well,
Yeah.
these ones are kind of straight, and I'm like, no, where's the men fit? Like,
Yeah. It's
so
hard. So I think like we're all learning and we're all doing our best to do so, and it's a little rocky along.
it's just like
So
when we at first replaced Jack and Jill, everyone was like,
yeah,
oh, what do we do? And then it settled.
yeah, and it's like I still sometimes am like, well, the mix and match or the luck of the draw, whatever it was called, like because ultimately I'm like it's the random partner.
Yeah.
Great, whatever they called it, it doesn't really matter. And so for me with this fit is like this fit is going to be a larger fit than the A sizing because it's going to be already wider
Okay.
based on the fact that it starts with what they normally have as a men's last. So it's going to be a little bit wider. It's going to go up to bigger sizes. Has a full leather sole, leather heel, and
Ooh,
it
those heel slides.
yeah, I know. My husband has giant feet, so I got two samples, and he doesn't really like the blue one. Um, he is the most color matching human I think I've ever met. It's hilarious. He's
He
like, no,
probably
I can't.
throws up looking at my shoes with their
Oh my God,
the
yes.
subscriber work.
He's like, but I can't wear a brown belt with these black shoes. And I'm like, why? Just do it. He's so well dressed. It's hilarious to me. I love it. And so he's been testing out the brown ones and he loves them. And like the very first thing he wrote me was like all caps. He's like, "Oh my God, the heel slides." So
That's
I'm like,
awesome.
yes, excited.
Johansson says,
But
one thing I
yeah,
dislike about my current shoes, rubber heels.
I know. If I have a leather sole, I want a leather heel. And I know other people really like the half rubber or the full rubber heel, which is great because that's what everybody else is doing. So I'm going to do
Nice.
this.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I have this style boot and then I have another one as well, which unfortunately I don't have samples of here because they're all at the factory at the moment. So
Oh,
I'll have two boots. They are different designs and different colors. And then they also, one of them is the A fit and one is the B fit. So that way I can kind of fit two different sizes of people with the two models. So
gotcha. Okay. And then you have wait, so each style has its own color? Or are you doing multiple colors for each style?
I will do, so the El Dorado showing going to have two colors.
Okay.
And then the Jackson Street is going to be two or three colors.
And that's
So I
a
basically try to
lower
it's going to be it's just a little bit differently styled. So some of the differences between this boot and that is like this one has an inside liner, kind of see the different color.
okay.
Whereas the other one is just going to be a single layer of leather. So it ends up fitting a bit differently. It's going to stretch a bit more, whereas like two layers of leather will hold the shape because you have two layers of something versus just one. Um, it
Sorry,
also is going to
chat.
be a little bit
I
more.
got into
Oh
like
no,
personal
okay.
shopping. I'm like, wait, but what's
What is this thing? No, it's totally fine. I'm like, let me. I mean, so the other boot will have like a lower line there.
Okay.
And part of that is just with the fit. Also, this is a 44, so that's why it's giant.
Hmm.
Like I said, my husband has giant feet. So if anybody else is a 44, shoot me a message. I might have a sample for you to try. But like they're also just a different design. This has a really cool it's so hard to see in this lighting. There's actually a line that goes around here.
Oh, okay.
These are designed off of a pair of shoes that John has had for like 6 years. He's had this pair of shoes that he bought at like a Goodwill. They're not boots, they're just normal low dress shoes. And I love these shoes. Like every time he wears them, I'm like, these shoes are great. And then one day I was like, what if I made those a boot? And he was like, yeah, they'd be amazing. So then I drew them as a boot, and now
And now they're here.
and now
That's
they're
awesome.
here. So and then the Jackson Street are they're actually based off of a design that I had made. I'd custom made in Lithuania a few years ago. So they're both boots, both leather sole, leather heel, but a little bit different design and then different fits and different colors. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
While I'm thinking about the leather soles, as we were talking about this is actually one of the things that kind of goes back around sustainability stuff, which is oftentimes you'll buy shoes and like here's another preview while we're here. You'll get shoes and they'll have like a plastic liner on the bottom. And normally you then like pull off that plastic liner, and it's really great because trying on like an event or a store, it prevents the sole from getting scratched up. But the downside is you just have this plastic that you just peel off and throw away. And I hate it. It was one of those about, 150 pairs of shoes per style. That's 300 shoes with plastic on the bottom that you're just pulling off and throwing away. And I was like, So then I went to the factory and I said, okay, when we do this, I don't want this. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll just peel it off ourselves and throw it away.
It's like, no, wait.
No. So I had to get them to go to the factory that makes the leather soles and basically get them to produce the soles without the plastic. And so there's like this whole ordeal because like, I don't care, make them do it anyway. And then came back and they said, okay, they're going to do it, but they might be dirty. And so I've just had to accept that this means that sometimes my shoes might have smudges on it, or they're going to be more likely to be scratched when people are trying them on. And it makes it a little bit harder because, shipping someone a pair of shoes and they open the box and then they look and there's like, it's like a little smudge on the bottom or something, or scratch.
What's this? Yeah.
What is this? And it's hard. So like I have to deal with that. And I think part of it is just making people aware that we don't have plastic liners. So that means if anybody tries them on, it's more likely there's going to be smudges. And then just knowing that I deal with that, but it makes me happy because I don't have. And they have their purpose. They're really great. And I totally understand people that choose to do it. I just was like, this is one little thing I can do. And I'll suffer a little bit with it, but it's a little thing. I'm going to do it. So.
No, that's cool. Good for you. That's really cool. You did mention a little bit about transparency.
Yeah. Yes.
Go for it.
So basically, you mentioned you have a lot of questions about shoe stuff, and the number of questions that I encounter, I think it really is telling of like how little as consumers we know about the products we purchase. And me too, before I started this, like I didn't really know or understand. And I think part of that is that we just have grown up without learning and knowing about what's going on, right? Like we don't really know what profit margins are until a company hits a Fortune 500 company. We don't really know what goes into making a product until they're reported in a newspaper for poor working conditions, And as I started this and I realized like the questions people have and the lack of knowledge, that was something that I wanted to change. So I've been really, really trying to tell people about it, like as much as I can. And also when I started this, the other people in the shoe industry, everyone's very protective because it's a lot of work, right? Like you're putting your designs, your artwork out there. And even just with what I have out there, I've already seen similar designs. And I know a lot of other companies that are out there also have similar designs being made of theirs. And sometimes it's just that there's only so many different ways you can make a boot, and then there's also a lot of us are using vintage inspiration, and there's a lot of vintage shoes that look the same. And part of that is we have limited pictures of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like there's all this stuff. And so people get very protective of their work. And then a lot of people have also had to do what I did, go knock on doors and like find all this information. And that means people don't really want to share that information. It's a little bit of like it's protective because you're worried about losing it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at most of the other people in the dance shoe industry, especially, most of it's women owners. And I think that tells me a lot. One, they're like incredibly hardworking, and they've done it all on their own. And that also means that it's like really scary knowing the world that we live in, what work you've done and how easy it is for that to disappear. And so I think it's really easy to want to protect yourself because if it's your livelihood, it's your livelihood.
Yeah.
And, for me, part of why I started this company in the type of company I did is I know I am not Sylvia Sykes. I don't think I'll be able to travel and teach forever. I hope that
Shout
I
out to
will,
Sylvia, the
I know, my God, I don't even know how
superhero.
she is a superhero. It's crazy. And she is incredible, but like, I don't know how I would be able to do that. And part of that is I do want to have kids, and I have a dog and a husband that I see not as much as I would like to.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I want to continue traveling and teaching, I also have to recognize that bodies get older and also trends change and all those things. And so having something that helps supplement that income is a really good choice. And so I get that. And even with all that understanding, I still want people to feel that they can approach me and hopefully like the other companies as well and learn more about where it's produced and how it's produced. And I think it's so, so important that as consumers, we start to know more about what we're buying and what goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that knowing that from a production level, like who is producing it, where is it being made, what is the, you know, pollution, carbon, et cetera, that is happening with this? Is it responsibly sourced? Is it ethically sourced, et cetera? And I'm really trying to do my best to share everything that I can. And some of the companies that I found that are out there that are a little bit more of these kind of one person businesses and new in the last couple of years, I've been noticing this trend of this idea of like transparency production, transparency pricing. And I think that's really, really cool. And that's something that I've definitely jumped on board with. So one of the things that I've been doing is with my gal Blanca here in Vienna, we've been working on basically like a graphic design that helps break down the pricing of our shoes, because I know people are like, man, but why is this shoe this much? But if I go to Target, this shoe is this much. And
Yeah.
I want to help people understand, like, well, if I was ordering 5,000 pairs of them, I could lower the price. That would be great, but that's not sustainable. So that ups the price. Or, well, I'm using, responsibly sourced leather. So that adds €10 per pair of shoes that it cost
Mm-hmm.
me versus if I used leather that wasn't chrome free and things like that. So there's all these little things that raises the price of a shoe in production, but then also, the shipping costs and the website hosting costs and the paying someone for graphic design costs and all those type of things that, because we just haven't gotten used to knowing about those things, we don't realize it. It's the same with dance events. People are like, oh, why did I have to pay $150? They have 200 people here.
What?
Like,
Hillary
yeah,
made money on this event?
yeah,
That's
exactly.
what?
Exactly. And I'm like, I mean, to give an event example, this year I've worked about 20 hours a week on Lindy Focus. So that's a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about a part-time job Normally in the real world, it would be a salary of some sort. It's still, and that's most of the time in the dance event, that's not what we're doing. And so when you have someone like Hillary, she does that event, like that is Hillary. So she's probably working like 40 hours a week. She has to make a salary because she can't work somewhere else. Like, so when someone's like, oh, she made money, I'm like, she has to make money. Of course. Like, thank you. I'm so glad she made money. She deserves to make money. Like, it's hard work and she's risking her own money and she's got a family to provide for. Like, it's good. And so I think with shoes, people do the same thing. They're like, oh, why would I spend more than $50 on a pair of shoes? I'm like, well, because you know where it was made, you know what it was made with, you know the people who shipped it to you, you know the people who designed it, like all these things. And so that's something that I really believe in, and I'm really appreciative. Like the clothing line Everlane, I think, has done a great job of this, and I love the way they've set it up on their website. And hopefully, maybe mine will be as great as theirs one day. With how they have, like links to every one of the factories they use and exactly how it's produced and photos of their factory workers and stuff. And then they have a whole pricing model in it. They show you like what their profit margin is. And so that's what I'm working on. Is I do want to be honest with people. Like, yes, my goal is to make money with this. I mean, I hope so. Otherwise, I'm just going to have hundreds of pairs of shoes in my living room and my husband angry at me in the other room. But I also want people to realize, it's not like if someone's selling a pair of shoes for $200, they're not making $200 off of it.
Right.
If they're selling it for 200, they're probably making 50 off of it. And then even that, people go, oh, well, like $50, that's a lot. But if you think about it, even if I sold, 500 pairs of shoes in a year, that's like, okay, that's a salary. That's workable. But then your taxes come out of that and everything. And then like that's for, like all the little expenses come out of that. And then suddenly you're like, oh,
yeah, that's not net. That's gross.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's I think it's really important that we understand that with supporting things, but then also just are making conscious choices about where we're buying things from and how we're getting it, and moving a little bit more to sustainable fashion versus just fast fashion. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Johansson says, that said, going by converted prices on your site, your shoes aren't expensive. It might be a good sum of money, but not expensive. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I try, like, if we have shoes that come in that have a defect, I definitely don't throw them. I sell them at a reduced cost, right? Like there are people who can't afford the prices that I have. And so maybe if there's, a scratch on it, or if there's a discoloration, maybe that's a really great opportunity for them to then purchase them. And then I have things like this where I've destroyed a shoe purposely. This is what I do. So when samples come
Jenna
in,
also
this is what your shoe looks
also
like.
Secretly a dog. Yes, she chews on. Okay.
Luckily, I did not pull this apart with my teeth. I did use pliers. My wrist did hurt for a very long time, though, which tells me how well the shoes are made. But basically, I take the sample. When I get a sample, I wear them. I wear them all weekend. I go out everywhere, walk around the city. I go out to dances, etc., just to see how they actually fit. And then I tear them apart to just make sure that they're constructed the way that I want them constructed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because sometimes I make changes. So like this one, you can see there's like this, basically the upper layer of leather, which you can see the peach color of the snake on this one that I mentioned earlier. And then there's this layer of like textile. It's like a stretchy cotton. And then the bottom layer of the inside leather, and then what they call a toe puff. So basically this toe puff thing, it's it starts off really soft, and they get it wet, put it over it, and it helps keep the shape of the shoe.
Oh, okay.
So that's how, if you get a shoe and like your toe is really squished, it might be because there's not one of these in there. Or it might just be that it's a flatter shoe. But this really helps keep the shape. And then this also with certain designs, they like to put this in there. In the final design of this one, the snake does not have that because I decided it wouldn't stretch enough, like it wouldn't move enough with the way that I want it for dance shoes. But the
Gotcha.
blue model does have a really thin version of this because that suede is so soft that without it, the shoe kind of loses its shape a little bit. So this is one of those things where you kind of start to, the more you learn about the leathers and the designs, the more you start to make decisions, and maybe one color of a shoe might be a different choice than a different one because the material is actually a little bit different.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and then you have like the breakdown, you see like the actual insole, how they kind of like wrap the leather under and around it. And then the last piece they would do is they would then actually glue on the sole. So you can see where I ripped the sole off from this. And so normally it's like goes in and it goes down the heel. And so like with these, what we did with this style was something a little bit different than what people are used to, which is we designed it so that the edging is a little bit further out of the shoe. So like you can actually see a little bit more of that around the edge. And most of the time, the sole is really hidden underneath the shoe. What it means is your toes are really going over the sole when they spread out. So like they spread out and then the sole is kind of gone, so you're stepping over. And so what I tried with these was to have a little bit wider sole underneath. And that way, when you're in the shoe, as your toes spread out, instead of going over the edge, there's still sole underneath your foot. So they look a little bit different.
Now is that on the B sizing as well, on the boots?
It is right now on the boots, yeah.
That's one thing. So one of my frustrations with shoes is I actually dance and walk a little bit bow-legged. Like, and so, or pronated, is that what it's called on the feet? There's
if you're pronated, then I think that's the one where you come in.
What's the opposite?
You go out?
Yeah.
You go out. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know which one's which, but because of that, the first part that always fails on my shoe is that outside, like by my pinky toe, and it always fails without exception.
Yep.
So I'm like, yeah, if it's because it's like I'm usually stepping out past the sole, so
that's cool. Yeah, and that's what most shoes are like. Now, especially I would say like heels are definitely like. So it means that my shoes look a little bit different, and I don't know that all of my shoes in the future will utilize that. But for now, that was one small change I wanted to go with. So yeah, I basically tear it all apart, see how it works, and then make sure that it is the way that I want. And it's like, it's good. It's fun. It takes me like an hour, I think, to tear it apart. So like, unfortunately, this is now kind of used. But again,
you should sell them as dog toys.
Leathers, like I could, and I could also probably reuse this leather for jewelry if I really took it apart. Like again, just trying to think of things like not just throwing things out to waste, trying to find ways to reuse things. Like you also see the giant stack of boxes up there. So they are there because they, at least most of them, are making their way to a local kindergarten for craft purposes.
That's awesome. Good for you.
So basically, one of the things I tried to do also eliminate boxes as much as possible. Just because typically you get to, you buy it or it comes in the mail and you take it out and then you just throw it away. Maybe you recycle it. Hopefully you recycle it. But most of the time, if I'm selling at events, then I definitely don't need the boxes. So moved to the shoe bags, and I started off where it was like um, they were still shipping things in boxes. And so basically, I would get the boxes, take them out for events, then put them back in. So I still ship in these, but I've got the factory now. Instead of shipping to me in the boxes, they will ship to me not in the boxes. So basically, I have a bunch of boxes that I save to use for shipping, and then the rest of them are going to the kindergarten to be recycled and used for crafts.
Cool.
And
That's
then,
awesome.
yeah, so again, just trying to like do little things to help lower a little bit of waste,
The footprint.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Little bit, little differences.
Now, by the way, as soon as you want to, like, if you're like, okay, I'm exhausted, because it can be exhausting to keep talking, and but I
Yeah.
would love to hear about your just kind of like the design, like the artistic side of things.
Yeah,
It's like
sure.
what things have personally influenced you, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think also it's hard for me to get tired talking about this because it's super exciting and I can feel it even in the way that yeah. But it's great. Um so I think design wise, oh, it's hard because I have kind of two parts to design. One is the going back to the function.
Hmm.
So I think function has really played a part in the design. So wanting things that fit me. So the toe box design, having things that are comfortable on my foot so that I can teach in them all day or dance in them all night. Um,
So
so-
that was probably priority then,
mhm.
function over
Yeah.
anything else first.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think function was a big, big thing. And that was with the heels specifically. I I had to spend a lot of time searching for the right heel because I wanted the balance of the heel to be very specific. And basically, I wanted there's this the way that a shoe lays, and I don't know that I can really show it in my hand, but basically, like you can see, like here, there's a certain way, like the toe is still fairly flat, and oftentimes you'll see that it curves up like this. And anything that curves up like this, when you wear it, it means it's going to pitch you forward.
Hmm.
And because I want something to like be comfortable in, I actually wanted something that was going to balance my weight and basically keep my weight in this part of the foot. And that way, anytime I want to shift the weight, I'm doing it with my body mechanics versus the shoe smushing my toe into the toe box. So getting this heel was like going to heel factories and like stacking heels and like putting lasts on top of it and just getting the proper balance and then getting the last the correct way. And it's amazing. Like you can, this exact heel I could put on a different last and it won't be balanced the same way.
Hmm.
So it really is this work of you have to do two parts. You have to get a heel and the last, and you have to like get them to work together. But then you have a like super stable shoe. And I don't know if I can find a way to show this without like tilting the camera at a weird angle. But basically, once the shoe is on the table with the heel and the weight is in it, the shoe is incredibly balanced. And like that was the biggest thing for me in the heels was they needed to be stable, they needed to be balanced, and they needed to support the weight under the ankle. And that was stuff that I took from actual like podiatrists and body alignment information.
Hmm.
And then wanting something that's comfortable and like cushy, and then wanting something that was wide. And that's kind of like the function part of it. And then the look was I really like things that stand out. I love things that are bold, that they're adventurous, they're fun. And I really try to think of my brand as being a representation of me and what I want to bring to the dance community and like society. So
Okay.
the idea of what are things that I like and what things do I constantly encourage people to do? So like stand out, take risks, uh, be bold. And so I was like, well, if that's me, if that's what I'm saying all the time, then that's what my brand needs to be. So I ended up with snakeskin, like I said.
Nice.
And I think I'm trying to think of the snake the Newport, the one that's snakeskin and then in blue. That one is definitely based off of a vintage design. And I've seen some similar versions, like basically like this, the little fringe on the
Okay.
front there. That is something that was pretty common both on lower shoes and high heels. And
Like
so I
it's
know
almost
like
like a loafer, right?
yeah,
Like
and
a
oh my God, I love loafers. Keep your eyes out for loafers in 2020 or 2021. Love loafers.
all the bow
I have
you're
so
gonna
many
like the all
things.
the bow dancers are just going to like
I
melt over
know.
your new loafer
Oh
shoes.
God, I hope so. What I need to like find the Nordstrom loafer and take it into my factory and be like this, and then I'll have everybody in my pocket. Perfect. Um, but like that fringe design, I like again, this kind of goes back to there's only so many things you can do with that type of fringe. So Remix actually has a beautiful, beautiful design that's like a fringe, but it's a slide in, like there's no way to tighten it or adjust it.
Mm.
And I have loved that model since the first time I saw it, and it doesn't fit me at all. And I keep trying and it still doesn't fit.
Every
Like
time you go
one
back.
day, every time I'm like, it still doesn't fit. So I was like, I knew that they had one with like the fringe, but I found this vintage design where it was the fringe, but it was like a different type of buckle strap, but it fit a little bit lower. So I made some adjustments to it. But that's what that one was based off of. And then I chose the color schemes for it. The Greenwood, which is, oh, I'm so sorry, everybody that's waiting for it. I know it's coming. I swear, swear. We have been basically, I don't even know how many times we've redone this shoe. We started the design in March and it's now October. And I think we finally got the fit, which means hopefully I will have them in early 2020. Hopefully. So that is this model that everybody is in love with. Low heel. I know. It's like I love them too. I want them. So this one, I don't even know exactly what inspired this one. I just remember being like, well, I want something that is closed toe and I want two tones. And then something gave me the idea of like the cutouts. I think I probably saw a shoe that had cutouts, but like cutouts to the foot or something versus cutouts to another color. And then I was like, oh my God, what if the color that you saw was the same color that was the liner? So it
Mm-hmm.
was like peeking into the shoe, but not really because. And then I was like, oh, I think I can draw this. And so this was actually the first design I did. It's just taking the longest of all the ones I've done.
Oh, so those haven't been available yet.
No, they are still not available. So I'm
They're super
really, really
cool.
hoping
Yeah.
I have them and they will be this color and then a yellow. And so there's a couple out there because again, like when I get the samples, um, if when I try them out on my own and like wear them, then I keep and use them if they fit. But like say a sample comes and it doesn't fit me and therefore I can't wear it and try it, then I just sell it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of very lucky people out there whose feet are tinier than mine that have some of these samples. So
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, that one's that. And then the Seneca was another similar to another vintage design with some change. Um, the Imperial, which will also be coming out in early 2020,
Oh my
is I
gosh.
think I think this is my favorite one right now. I think. I don't know. I'll change my mind in 5 minutes. This one, it's going to be a little bit different once it's finalized. We made a couple of changes. You can see it's like the wedge. I think we're going to not have it hidden we're gonna have it just be a normal wedge. But this one came from a pair of shoes that I saw on an old lady dancing in Myrtle Beach last year. They were just like they were just her sandals, and they were like this strappy thing, but they were open toe. So then I was like, oh, cool, like they're, strappy. And so then I started playing around with it, and I changed it, made it a little bit thicker, and then adjusted the toe. And then I was like, oh, what if I do this wedge thing? And then what if I make it cross and like go? So it's this whole crazy system, which I'm sure my factory hates me for. But basically, it crosses over at the top of the foot, and then it loops into the buckle here, but the strap actually goes around and back.
Oh.
So instead of it being like open or just a normal T-strap, like this one with the T-strap, you can actually like adjust it hugging your foot.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like this one, I love it. It's really, really great. And there's not a lot of wedges out. So I'm excited to offer something a little bit different. And I'm trying to think of the other ones. The boots, like I mentioned, I told the story about John's shoe for the El Dorado. The Jackson Street came from just some random pair of shoes from not dancing shoes, just a pair of boots. And then again, like really loving the way that the I guess you could say like the cut or the lines of how they fell on the foot. And then being like, what if I change this and this and this? And then suddenly.
Cool. We have a question from chat.
Awesome.
He says, for Jenna, do you find anything different? Did you find anything different between the body dynamics with designing a shoe for dancing versus the way we move normally? And if so, did any of that impact design?
Ooh, yes. Yes and no. So I think that there's a lot of things in shoes that are everyday shoes that are really terrible for us that we wear all the time. I think in general, the shoe industry has gone to things that have no arch support. They have no metatarsal support. They often have horrible balance. Like a lot of it has just gone to fast fashion. Like we make it.
Mm-hmm.
So in that aspect, yes, I really thought about like the different mechanics that we use in dancing, how that would be different from those shoes. But at the same time, like one of the people, actually my aunt was the first person to buy a pair of shoes from the website. Thank you, Aunt Michelle. And she is not a swing dancer at all. She does, however, do some like local ballroom classes occasionally. So she has been wearing them for that. She says she loves them. They're amazing for that. But she also wears them like for conference stuff. And that I've had some other people. There's a gal here in Vienna who her and I have been chatting about trying to actually get me at one of her. She does like women empowerment.
Oh, cool.
And to get my shoes there because she was like, I've been wearing these at these conferences. So she wears them all day and loves them. And, she's standing in them all day. She's walking around. And like they're great for that.
If it's a function first shoe, like there's no reason you couldn't market to like outside the dance. Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So it's definitely like there is a little bit of like, but for example, if I was designing shoes for West Coast Swing, I would design them a little bit differently because of some of the function that they need in their dance. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier. They tend to go for shoes that are a lot more flexible because they go for a lot of like articulation and point in their foot. And, obviously like this is not going to point and articulate the way that their shoes do.
Mm-hmm.
But in Lindy Hop or Bow or Shag blues, we don't go for that. That's not the type of movement we're really aiming for most of the time. So the function that we're looking for in our dance is a little bit more of impact and absorbency. Um, we also are tending to move in a way that's more similar to a jog than a walk. Whereas like West Coast swing, they're really walking through a lot of their movement. So it also requires a different movement through the foot. So I think like there's a little bit of that.
You just blew my mind with that a little bit, by the way. I was like,
You're
wow,
welcome.
they're like fast walking. Like they're like versus
Mm-hmm.
like jog. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
There we
it's
go.
totally, and it's a difference in mechanics. And so like, even, but this is the thing is when someone wears in their workday, right? Someone wearing a 3-inch heel in their workday is not walking the same way they would with a flat shoe.
Mm-hmm.
So there should be a difference in that because you're already basically in releve, so you're moving differently. So definitely like designing the mechanics of a heel versus a flat shoe are different. But designing for like dance shoes versus everyday shoes is more based on the individual dance. Um, and so yeah, like I said, it's kind of a yes and no. Like I've definitely thought about the dance mechanics, but it's surprisingly similar to a lot of the things that we should have more of in our everyday shoes. So
What's your just like for a quick opinion on
yeah.
like minimalistic type of shoes?
Mhm. Ooh, I am probably a terrible person to ask for that.
Okay.
Um, if I don't want to feel like I'm wearing shoes, then I just don't wear shoes.
Same.
So I'm definitely like I'll be barefoot. Or I love my Birkenstocks. In love with them. They're amazing. Will buy as many of those as I can without feeling wasteful. Um, and then otherwise, I tend like when it comes to like I don't really go that route. I think part of it is I really look for things actually the opposite of minimalist shoes. I'm looking for things with arch support. I'm
Mm,
looking for things that have a really supportive balance. And instead, if I'm wanting to work on my own muscles in my feet, then I'm doing exercise or I'm actively going barefoot.
gotcha.
Um, and I know there's a lot of different takes out there on that. So that's just the one that I take. And part of that is based on what I do. That's the choice I find works the best for me. So I
I
think Kenny Nelson is a great person to ask about shoes, though. I think he has like all the rundown on
Oh, really?
those.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Johansson.
feel
So
like
minimalistic is
yeah.
like it's like basically emulating barefoot. Like
Mhm.
it's like if you remember those like toe shoes that came out,
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like basically just like a little extra protection on the heel
Hmm.
and the ball of the foot, but that's it.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
I
then we
think.
had Ben's dance. This is Igor
Oh,
from St. Petersburg. He says hello.
oh, hey, hi.
I believe you remember me from Tartu, is what he says.
Yes, I do. Hi.
So Igor actually sometimes streams. He live streams
Oh,
from
awesome.
St. Petersburg. It's really cool.
Very cool. It just
So
we had I just posted on Instagram a picture from Tartu weekend with us dancing to the Change Partners Band. I was teaching with my friend Dom that weekend, and we had so much fun. It was my first time in Estonia, and it was so ridiculously welcoming. So much fun. The band was amazing. So plug out to Change Partners Band from St. Petersburg, actually. So
wait, is that Igor's
yeah,
band?
yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
They were so good. I was amazed. It was great. It was so much fun.
And
I
so
loved
I
them.
honestly one of my favorite things about this is like the community aspect of live streaming. Like we
Hmm.
have more I think we have more European viewers right now, honestly. Well, I mean, and you're coming from Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's
during Camp Hollywood,
great.
one thing that was super fun, Igor was in chat and we got raided by another streamer, which
Hmm.
raids are when they take they're done streaming for the evening,
Hmm.
so they'll take
Hmm.
their audience and go to another channel and like and
Oh,
boost the channel. It's
okay.
really a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
fun way to share new streamers.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
but we got raided by an artist in St. Petersburg, and
Well,
she's like, wow, this is really cool. I'd love to learn. And it just so happened that there were there was dancers from St. Petersburg watching, and so we were able to
oh,
connect them a little bit. And I just like that was like a highlight of Camp Hollywood for me because I was like, this is
wow.
so cool.
That's
Yeah, it was really fun.
man. Technology is,
So
I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like, what? How does this even work?
yeah, exactly.
It's one of those, if I think too hard on it, then I'm like, I no, overwhelmed,
Yeah,
can't function.
it's
So
like
I
for
just accept it.
all the bad parts of like social media and stuff that we have to like there are definitely benefits that we have to remember.
Oh, for
And
sure. I mean, it's amazing the way that we can stay connected now and like the way that we can share things. And I mean, I was thinking about this the other day and the way that we can stay in communication with friends from around the world in a way that like I mean, if even if you had met someone from the other side of the world 30 years ago, what maybe you would talk to them once every 6 months,
yeah.
maybe like, and now you're just like all day you can just send over a message.
Oh
Yeah,
look, they're getting pizza for lunch.
yeah.
Sort of.
It's a little weird, but so cool. I I'm happy for it as much as I have my
Ben's dance says dancing with Jenna
around.
was awesome.
Oh,
So
I
good.
agree. I had so much fun.
So it's
That was
almost
so good.
Igor, it's almost like we've danced with each other because I've danced with Jenna and you've danced with Jenna.
Ooh,
It's,
yes. That's like totally the same.
it's like the 6 degrees of
Yes.
Jenna Applegarth. There
Oh
you go.
gosh. Like that has to be a thing. It's like I'm sure that you could find a way of like, oh, I've danced with you. Like every person you meet, you'd be able to find a way.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Actually,
Like,
I've heard even with social media,
hmm,
they're like basically everyone in the world on social media, you can connect through like 7 people.
that's oh,
It's
wow.
that's crazy, but it's that small. Just because the way the numbers work out though. So
Wow. That's amazing. That's
dance
that might keep me up
law.
at night.
Micha says dance law of associativity. Nice. Well, I don't think I have any more questions like that are like pressing or
Yeah.
I think we've had a really good talk. Is there
Yeah.
anything specific that you kind of want to end on? Like give you a chance to actually we've been somewhat promoting your brand, but
Yeah.
also like give you a chance to say, anything you want about the website or I think let me link the website for chat.
Yeah. Actually, this gives me a really great opportunity. I'm just finalized just this last month. I will be having a US distribution location. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I'm super excited. I one of the good friends of mine who West Coast swing dancer and has uh, his own West Coast shoe brand as well. My friend Stefan Schneider, he has Shoes by Stefan. He has all the things set up already at his place for his brands. And him and I were able to work something out where he is going to help with the US and Canada based distribution. So the downside is that I have to do a whole second website to make it easier for everybody else. But the good news is it's going to be easier for everybody else. And so basically in the next couple of weeks, it will, if you are someone who is based in US or Canada, when you go to the shop, it will actually reroute you to the US one, which means the prices will be based in US rates. So you'll be charged in that, and shipping rates and everything is based off shipping from the US. So it's way easier. It also means there's no delays with customs and all that stuff. It just simplifies the process a lot. There still will be the customs going from US to Canada, but it's much shorter and much easier to deal with than all the way from Austria to Canada.
Okay.
So I'm really, really excited for that. It also just means that if you order something, you'll get it in like a week versus 15 to 25 days, depending on how bad of a day the customs person has. So
Well, cool.
I'm very, very happy with it. Yeah. That means as well, exchanges for people in the US and Canada will be a lot easier because they'll send it back to there versus all the way back to Austria.
Okay.
And then we have events lined up. I said, hopefully ILHC, I think we'll be there. Same with Lindy Shock, and then Blues Fever in Vienna, Austria for sure, and Lindy Focus in Asheville, North Carolina for sure. And then 2020, keep your eye out. We will hopefully have
give us the boots.
Quite a few, I know. So other than that, I just really honestly super appreciate the support that everyone is showing. Starting a new business on your own while you already yourself incredibly difficult, and I could not be here without the support of my close friends and family, of course, but also honestly, as cheesy as it is, all the people who have already bought shoes and really believed in me and my brand. And I hope that you continue, and also just keep providing feedback, because since it's new to me, I'm learning as I go, and I really want to build this brand for dancers. So let me know, and we'll see what we can do together.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you for joining. That's
thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this has been fun. This has been really. Oh, yay. Micha says, yeah, Lindy Focus, NC represent. Yes. Yeah, I'm headed to Lindy Focus too for my first time. First time this year.
I'm so excited for this year. I'm so excited.
Although I still haven't bought my flight, and I'm like, oh.
You should do that. You should do that.
Oh, so who are your partners for Strictly, the Pro-Am?
Oh, so the one that I have.
Oh, you went muted.
Yeah.
Who was it?
Oh, Kevin Brinkley.
Oh, Kevin Brinkley. Okay, cool.
And then I actually have a handful of other people that have asked, and so I'm over 3 the number of people that have asked. But like, it was one of those things where I went to bed and I woke up with the messages, and now I'm like, ah! So I have to sort it out between all of them.
Lottery system.
Yeah. Which actually I would have already been capped out because actually I had a couple of people as to dance with them as a leader, which was really, really, and I was super happy to do it. But then when we found out that we could dance with 3, then I was like, you should totally ask one of those other predominantly leader pros that you were originally going to ask, because as much as I would love to do it with you, I think you will show better with them. But now I might still do it as a leader as well. So we'll see. There's good stuff in the works. So I'm very excited.
I immediately asked Natalia because she's local too.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah. And she's so sweet. She's so wonderful. I cannot so yeah. So I'm doing it with Natalia, and I'm so excited.
Yeah. If you haven't seen her also, which I'm sure you have, but if you haven't seen her also showcase her amazing Carolina Shakes, like,
oh yeah,
she's just like a powerhouse in every dance she does.
She's awesome. She's shout out to Natalia. She's so awesome.
Yeah, Natalia.
And honestly, I'm just going to share this just because I don't think a lot of people know about it, and she would never brag about it. There was a year at ILHC where one of Matt's kids that he brings out.
Oh yeah.
One of Matt's kids, his partner backed out like while they were at ILHC, and he didn't get to do his thing. Nobody knows this, but at Swing California which was an event more local to them. Natalia drove up, learned the choreography, and did it as like an exhibition performance with the kid.
Oh my God.
I like, it makes me like teary-eyed. She's so wonderful.
I know, me too. That's like...
So shout out to Natalia. She's awesome. So
she is very awesome.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and end there. We'll hang up, and then I'll do a little bit of closing updates on what's going on the channel. But yeah, if you get a chance, buy the shoes and take lessons with John and Jenna. They're so awesome. Oh, what's the next event? Are you teaching at all of these events that you listed?
Yes, my next event is this coming weekend in Graz in Austria. I'm teaching with Arnis from Vilnius, Lithuania. And then the next one I have after that is Thessaloniki, where I'm teaching with Felipe Braga.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the next weekend is Beijing, teaching with John. And the next weekend is Purdue, teaching with Dan Repsch. And then the next weekends after that are back teaching with John.
That's awesome.
So yeah. And
So
then
good.
Lindy Focus, I'm also teaching with Todd again this year.
Okay, cool.
Lots of people, lots of great people. I'm excited. It's a good
That's
fall.
awesome. Okay, well,
Awesome.
yeah, well, I'll talk to you. I'll see you at an event soon, I'm sure. So,
Yes.
thanks
Lindy
for
Focus at the latest.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for doing this, and yeah.
Thank you
I'll
for
talk to
having
soon.
me.
All
All right. Bye.
Okay. Oh, let me fix that. Boop. That didn't work. Okay, I think I'm here. We good? We're good. You can see me. You can hear me. Hi, everyone. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. That was a great conversation. I learned a lot, and it was fun. Jenna's just so fun to